Hey babe 내 피땀 눈물 내 마지막 춤을 가져가 Every time I show up.
Hi, welcome to the Casual Stans podcast, where we are fans, but not exactly stans. My name is Cassidy. My biggest groups that I love are BTS and Blackpink, as well as Big Bang and Girls' Generation. And I started really getting into K-pop probably 2020, but it's always been an influence since probably 2012.
Yeah, and I can go next. I'm Melissa. Some groups I'm really into right now are like New Jeans, IVE, and TXT and 17. And I started really getting into K-pop and even being introduced to it overall back in high school. I think grade 10 or 11. I'm not sure what year that is, but it's been my favorite music genre ever since. And, really enjoy being a part of the fandoms.
I guess I could go next. My name is Vivian. I started getting into K-pop around high school, also around like grade 9 and 10-ish. Recently, I've been more interested in newer groups like New Jeans as well.
I'll go last. My name is Esther, and I've been interested in K-pop since around 2016, since grade 8. And the people that I really like now are groups like SHINee, Monsta X, obviously New Jeans, and then individual artists like Taemin and Taeyeon.
Yeah. Seems like we all like a variety of groups here today. It's great to have diversity.
It's interesting because we prior to this podcast talked a little bit about how we got into K-pop or people that we like, and we saw that there were a lot of through lines and a lot of similarities into how we all got into K-pop despite our different groups that we like.
Yeah.
So just to break the ice, just to kind of get us started and put us in the mood to talk about K-pop, we all prepared two truths and a lie. Basically, all of us have come up with 3 things that we will kind of market as all being true, and we will have to guess which of the 3 are the lie. We've focused our questions our facts mainly on K-pop or fandoms or how the effects may, proliferate through society or to ourselves. So yeah.
I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
So my first one is in 2020, a girl group named Mamamoo accidentally showed up to an event dressed as Teletubbies. That's the first one. The second one is that one of the names that Mamamoo could have debuted with was Do Re Mi. And the third is that 2PM, which is a male K-pop group, their fandom's name is Hottest. So you have to guess the lie.
I just like saying out loud my thoughts. I've heard something about Mamamoo and Teletubbies before, so like I don't want to cross that out.
I've seen this. I think I've seen this. It could be that Esther's putting a fast one on us and it could have been a different year, but this has definitely happened. So
yeah.
I don't know much about 2PM, so
yeah, same. I've never heard of their fandom name.
Yeah.
And the one with Mamamoo being Do Re Mi, like they're known for their vocals, so I feel like that
I feel like that's
been...
doable.
I agree with us all. Should we say number 3 is the lie?
Number 3, yeah.
Is it number 3?
Yeah, sure.
No, it's number 2. Mamamoo was gonna debut with the name Belly Button.
Yeah, you should have said that. That one seems like a lie.
Yeah, not Do Re Mi. And 2PM's fandom name is actually Hottest because 2PM is supposed to be the hottest time of the day.
Oh,
yeah. Once you hear it, it kind of makes sense. But yeah.
Imagine being like, "Oh, I'm part of the hottest. I'm the hottest."
I'm the hottest. Yeah.
That's funny.
That is really, really funny.
I guess I can go next. Like my facts kind of took a different approach to, I guess, fandoms. Okay, so the first one being the girl group Wonder Girls were the first Koreans to reach the Billboard Hot 100 with their English version of Nobody. Okay. Second, South Korea is among the top 10 global beauty markets in the world. Okay. Third being BTS currently has 9 full-length English songs.
Okay, I believe number 2. We've seen a lot of K-beauty and like skincare. So I'm gonna count number 2 out.
I feel like BTS might have more English songs than that.
Yeah, I'm trying to like literally count in my head like the number of the songs they have.
Name them, go.
Well, fully English songs, right? Wasn't
Yeah.
Dynamite the first one?
There's Dynamite, Butter, Permission to Dance. They're like the three
That's
I
only
know.
3.
Yeah. Were there
I
any
just remember the
others?
marketing for Dynamite being like, ooh, the first all English BTS song. I also believe Wonder Girls being super popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3?
Number 3? Okay.
3?
Yep, that is false. They only have 3,
Okay.
Dynamite, Permission to Dance, and Butter, but it seems like a lot more because they're so popular, right? Like those
Yeah.
songs. So yeah.
Well, you said it and we all believed you. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Vivian, do you want to go next?
Sure, but mine was actually a little different. Mine is actually about myself. I think I got it completely
No,
wrong.
absolutely.
That's
Mine are
great.
different than all of them too. You're good.
Okay. So my first 3 things are my first ever encounter with K-pop was in 2016. The group I was mainly interested in is BTS, and I've been to one of their concerts. So those are the 3 statements.
This is number 1 a lie.
Wait,
I
so
feel
I
like
remember
What does
she
everybody else
mentioned
think?
Blood, Sweat, and Tears, right?
I think that was 2016.
Yeah.
For context, Prof, as you're watching this video, there are the similarities we were talking about for getting into K-pop were that many of us got into K-pop through watching the Blood, Sweat, and Tears BTS music video. So that's what we're going off of. I think that was 2016 or yeah.
I was literally just watching that music video to reminisce, and it was 6 years ago. I don't know about the
Okay.
math. Was that 2016?
Wait.
Yes, because we're at the beginning of 2023. So okay, we'll count that as true.
Yeah. Okay.
So then
I think you haven't been to a concert yet.
Oh my God, yeah, they were gonna come to Toronto, right? But they didn't, unless you went to the earlier BTS concert.
I don't know. It's up to you guys to choose.
I feel like it's number 3.
Yeah?
Concert?
Yeah. Concert.
Okay. I believe you, Esther. Let's do it. Number 3.
Yeah,
That's your
sure.
final. Okay. So number 3 is actually true.
Oh.
I kind of did a trick thing on you guys because I said my first ever encounter with K-pop was 2016, but that was when I actually like really got into it. My first ever encounter, I think, we were also talking about it before, was in those like YouTubers react videos, probably in like 2012 or something.
Oh yeah.
So that was what I meant. And I have been to the first concert, but not the second one since they canceled it. Yeah.
Sad.
You got us.
No, she really did get us.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll do mine. So my 3 are that a little more like K-pop industry focused. So number 1, the cost of training one idol through the trainee program averages at $1 million. Number 2 is that in 2020, there was supposed to be a Donald Trump rally with 19,000 people that were expected to attend, but you had to RSVP. And through K-pop fans flooding social media and RSVPing, but then just to troll and just to cancel out and I guess not support the rally, the turnout only ended up being about 20%. And lastly, the first K-pop album was released in 1925.
I've heard about the rally one.
Yeah, me too.
The third one is, I don't think that's right. 1920, the first album. Were there like music albums in the 1920s?
Yeah, that's like ancient. Oh my God.
Wait, I thought the first album was in like the 50s or 60s. I don't know.
I also, do you guys know the like YG Treasure Box, that show that was like That was a long time
love
ago.
it.
Yeah. So I don't know why. I was already watching clips of it like recently, and I swear they said or at least at YG they were spending like 100,000 per trainee, but I don't know if that applies like generally. So
Yeah, 1 million
I don't know, a
seems like a
million?
lot. Like,
Yeah.
don't trainees train from either like less than 1 year to like, many years? So a
Mhm.
million, like on average, maybe?
For like the total cost or per year? Because if it's total cost, then maybe
Mhm.
if they train for like 10 years. But yeah.
Hmm. First or third?
I don't know. 1925 seems very questionable.
Okay, should we go with third then?
We're always choosing the last one.
We can go
Yeah,
first this
that's true.
time. We can do something
First?
different.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't all need to choose the same one.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, the first one.
I'll go third then.
The
Okay.
third one?
I'll go number 2 just to be different.
I'll do the first one.
Okay. So it actually was the first one.
Oh, wow.
So yes, the first K-pop album was released in 1925. It was called Yeopangcheon Sewol, and it was by artists Park Chae-seon and Lee Ryu-sek. A lot of people credit like the growth of K-pop in the 90s with Taiji and the Boys. But the first actual K-pop album was released in 1925. The second one is true. Go K-pop stands. But yeah, the first one actually has a lot of varying information because 1 million seems very big or small, but depending on an individual person, they range anywhere from 100,000 at very small companies to up to $3 million per K-pop idol. And a lot of sources are saying on average, especially with the big three companies, 3 million, especially if they are planning to debut, with a lot of groups averaging at about 5 million for their total expenses as a group.
Wow, that's actually crazy. It just makes me wonder like how profitable like the K-pop industry is, especially because it's so big. These companies are willing to invest like millions of dollars into each group. It's just crazy to think about.
It's actually an investment. Like if their group like flops, then it's over.
Then yeah.
Yeah.
But do trainees have to pay back the money that's spent on them?
So it depends. It depends on the company, and I think that's a really interesting thing that we're seeing in like big three groups. For backstory, the big three groups are the three historically largest entertainment companies within K-pop. So YG Entertainment, SM Entertainment, and JYP Entertainment, and the three of them have historically created the groups with the most popularity, the highest album sales, most influence. And recently, with the popularity of BTS, we've been talking about them having a big four with their company HYBE being part of the equation. But a lot of companies, especially if they are not in the big three, they don't get paid until they pay off their debt. Like they have to pay off their debt first and then they receive income. It doesn't happen in SM and JYP, I believe, or YG, but especially things like Starship or Blockberry Creative. I'm just looking this up though. People say that the industry is worth about $10 billion for Korea.
Wow.
I remember like a while ago, even like I think the Korean president like invited BTS or something because they were such a big part of the economy boost. So imagine like what the whole of K-pop would do.
Yeah.
And BTS also did something with like the UN or something like that, right? I remember seeing that. It's like, wow, K-pop is so global now.
100%. I think just to shift it over to our discussion points, like it really is all because of the fans and the way that fans have collectively decided to group together on social media platforms or in concerts or in person and kind of create their own communities to raise up their idols. And we've seen that have like major international influences as well. Like especially I guess like all of our individual experiences, right? We all don't live in Korea, and yet we all have our own groups that we really enjoy. We've been to concerts, we have supported them since over a decade ago, and like in different phases of our lives we've kind of picked and chosen what to support. And it's interesting because we are all very westernized compared to living in Korea and being a K-pop fan, and so it's interesting seeing the influences there.
Yeah, that's really great. And maybe we can like share our own experiences, you know, being in our respective fandoms and what that like liking K-pop was like for each of us as well.
Esther, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I feel like obviously by the name, I'm really a very casual fan. Like when I first started listening to K-pop in 2016, I was just like, I'll click on this YouTube video and watch it, and then I'll think about it for like a year, but like never going past that. But more recently, especially because I've been watching a lot of Korean content in general, like variety shows and dramas, I've been more active in the K-pop fandom. So like now if I see an interesting post on Reddit, like I'll comment on it. So a good example I think is recently, I don't know if any of you guys know ONEWE. It's like this K-rock album. Yeah, I mean, it's a K-rock group. They released their first all English album. And the songs are really good, but the English translations are terrible. So I went to Reddit to like see what people were saying about it, and it was just really fun like engaging in different conversations about like how other people felt the same way that I did, and like we're kind of a little bit disappointed on how they were being taken out of the music because like a group of people didn't do their job properly, so and things like that. Like I'm saying I've been getting more like actively engaged in K-pop since I started. Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I totally relate to like a lot of your experience as well. Like even nowadays when like a new music video comes out or like a new show comes out, like I'm watching like Boys Planet right now, you know, when it comes out, right? I go straight to TikTok to see like people are talking about what their opinions are about it. And I think that's so a really great thing about being in the K-pop fandom is that everyone is so interconnected through platforms like Reddit, through TikTok, through Instagram, where like even if, you know, I don't know any of my friends, they don't watch Boys Planet, but I'm able to like connect people online who do watch it, and yeah, it's just fun interacting in that sense.
100%.
Yeah.
I think the cool thing, I'll just bring in some terms from class because Esther, I know you brought this up in our brainstorming session, but the idea of like participatory culture and transmediality as well, especially with like the participatory culture with fan sites and like on Reddit, people putting in their 2 cents, and then the transmediality of being like exposed to idols from watching shows or ads or different like Korean media as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just gonna bring up transmediality as well, and I also agree with what Esther and Alyssa said about their experiences. So, like for example, I think when like New Jeans first came out, I was very like iffy on the whole thing because they were so young and like a lot younger than me, which was like a little weird. But then like after I was so exposed to them like on Instagram and TikTok and all of those social media sites, then I started to really like enjoy their music and then follow up on their content and their activities and everything.
Yeah, I agree definitely with like New Jeans' popularity, just user generated content, like everybody dancing to it, everybody listening to it, everyone saying you know how talented they are, kind of made me think like the same. And not gonna lie, like they are really talented, love their music, but just everybody talking about it online really contributed to the success. And that kind of reminded me of like Psy, you know, the reading on like Gangnam
Yeah.
Style, like you know, all those parodies like worldwide was a huge factor to their success. And I think that you know, that kind of relates to how I got into the K-pop fandom in general. Like listening to one music video was one thing, but actually watching like all the fan-made content, like, you know, back in the day in 2016, like those compilations of like funny moments of BTS or
Yes.
like cute moments of Jungkook, like those are what got me into the fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like people, you know, creating subtitles and creating these like compilations is what really made me got to know like the personality of the members.
Mm-hmm. I think it's been also really interesting too to see K-pop's crossover to the West, because you brought up Gangnam Style. Like I agree, that was one of the first times where K-pop was introduced to the West as a phenomenon and kind of accepted. But then also like as we've continued to see the industry grow, there's been such a huge, I guess, push to make it more Westernized with crossovers and features of Western artists on songs. For example, I got into BTS through my favorite Western artist being featured on a song from one of the members. And so that's how I discovered and BTS and K-pop more seriously. But I think the idea of like, it's almost convergence of industries and I guess globalization in that way as well. But definitely like I loved hearing about the participatory culture that Esther you were talking about with Reddit, because I totally agree. It's definitely like been through social media that East and West can kind of have that more I guess community feel.
Yeah, I also think, speaking on participatory culture, like the joy of being part of a fandom is the interaction with other people. Like if I was just watching videos by myself, like I don't think I would get as much out of it, but it's because, you know, people are making fan content and there are discussion posts that like I really feel connected to this fandom.
100%.
I was gonna also bring up like the whole like we were talking about participatory culture. So I don't know if any of you were on, but definitely for a while I was on Twitter. And that was just like a whole other like interactive experience in itself. So like I guess just being able to talk to and like meet other people who are interested in the same thing as you was like almost like empowering sort of. I don't know if that's the right word, but you just feel really included into one like subject. And I think that was also one of the main things why people are so interested, because they can like meet so many other people who are also interested.
Maybe do you want to explain a bit on what Stan Twitter is? Because I know like I'm not too familiar with Twitter, and probably people watching like or listening are not too familiar with it as well.
I guess the way I would describe it is just like on Twitter, there's specific communities, I guess, and there's a lot of so for K there's one for K-pop, there's different like fandoms within K-pop. Of course there's others like for TV shows and games and stuff. But it's just kind of like one single community where like, you know, people have mutuals, everyone knows each other, and you just really are there to talk about your favorite things.
I think it's been really interesting too, because it's been recognized by other communities or fandoms as a very specific to K-pop sort of community as well. It's been interesting to see how it grows and then how it's like spread to other platforms. Like TikTok has like Stan Twitter communities, or Reddit as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say like fandom, like the K-pop fandom specifically is such a networked culture. Like how you mentioned that everyone is connected with each other, everyone has mutuals, and it definitely goes to show within like the K-pop fandom as well. And yeah, like seeing how you mentioned that kind of Stan Twitter, I guess, is known by other people not even in the K-pop fandom. And you know, when before I was even like a K-pop stan, I guess like we all had a certain perception on what a K-pop stan looked like and acted like. And you know, there even still is that kind of stereotype right now. Like if you say you're an ARMY, people think that you're like, you know, really obsessed with BTS or you act a certain way. But, you know, us all being like casual stans, we can say that, you know, those stereotypes about fandoms, especially for K-pop fans, are really not true. They're all like normal students like us. You know, there's so many U of T students who are K-pop stans as well. Yeah.
It's really interesting too, because I love music, I love media, and so therefore I find myself in part of fandom, or being part of fandoms for a lot of different forms of media, and then have for a long time, like especially throughout my teenage years and now as more of an adult. But it's been really interesting seeing the uniqueness of K-pop stans in particular. For example, on Twitter, there are whole communities of K-pop stans, specifically like, you know, ARMYs, which are BTS's fandom, who are all in law school, and they have the law school ARMY like support group. And there's thousands of people that are just talking to each other because they have the mutual interest in BTS and are also in law school, and they support each other. They talk about advice for the LSATs or what internships they're getting or something like that. Or additionally, like the way that K-pop like fans as well during concerts or going to events. They'll talk to each other is very different. For example, I believe this started in Korea, but fans will go to events and bring gifts for other fans as well. Like I went to an ATEEZ concert, which is a K-pop boy group, and a girl gave me this little keychain with her favorite member. And here, let me see if I can, if this is, oh
yeah, we see it. Yeah.
This little keychain with her favorite member and like a little charm on it. I've also been to like events and they've given me photo cards or like things that they've created just because they are so excited to be there and happy to be a fan and part of the fandom. And I think it's a very unique thing to K-pop. And it's interesting because I wonder if that's just specifically a Korean thing that has made its way over to the West with like westernized views Western fandoms.
I think it's partially the way that the industry is actually structured, because we talked about before, like parasocial relationships. Like as fans, we're given like a very deep insight into the idol's life, like a surface insight. So like that kind of translates to how we interact with each other to be on a more personal level, I feel like. Because in Western media, like you're not exposed to your artist in the same way that you are in K-pop. So you don't feel the need to connect with other fans the same way you do in K-pop, if that makes sense. Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense.
I feel like with a lot of Western artists, at least from what I've seen, of course, there's still like a fan star interaction, but I feel like the most that happens is like probably like meet and greets and things like that. Obviously with K-pop, we know they're like, those like fan video calls that they do sometimes.
Like V-Lives.
Yeah, so V-Lives, the video calls, like those are all different ways for them to interact with fans, and that probably kind of generates this like desire, I guess, to like be more connected with their lives, I guess. And also like with Cassidy, your ATEEZ, like the little charm that you got. I've been to a couple like Western concerts or Western artist concerts as well, and like obviously none of that has ever happened. So yeah.
I think it's just part of I guess the popularity of K-pop too. For example, I remember Shawn Mendes saying at his future concerts that he would start putting he would start having light sticks for his fans, and light sticks are something that is very unique to K-pop and have been for a while. And so it's interesting seeing the adoption of things that have become popular in Korean, like in the K-pop industry, and having Western artists take that over. Another example would be music video teasers. So having 5 to 10 second teasers with a little snippet of the song and a little bit of the music video released a few days or a week prior. That is something that is very popular in K-pop and has been less popular in Western, like in the pop industry in the West. And so I've seen that also pop up as well.
Yeah, now that you mentioned like how light sticks are kind of moving from Korea to some Western artists adopting as well, that's like a really good transition to our next topic on how, K-pop has influenced Western media in general, through beauty standards, through fashion, and through music in general. So maybe we can talk a bit more about that.
I think the interesting thing too, to kind of preface our topic, is when we were brainstorming this, we were thinking about the positives of this and the positive impacts, but also the negative impacts as well, just to kind of give two sides of the coin.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this as well, like our brainstorming, like, growing up in Canada, for me specifically, like, being introduced to K-pop, I was seeing a lot how they were kind of pressured against these Korean beauty standards. And I guess unconsciously, consuming a lot of this Korean media, I somehow held myself against those same standards as well. And that had a huge negative impact on me growing up in high school, where I was very self-conscious, I guess. I never realized that having tanner skin was bad, or having monolids was considered kind of ugly in Korea. And I guess now, having grown up, I realized that, putting those strict Korean standards onto myself is very, very unhealthy. And I'm sure like that's something that many stans, I guess, go through, just learning more about themselves and, not to be too harsh on themselves.
Sorry,
no, you can go. It's okay.
Okay, so I completely agree with what Alyssa just said. So, I guess growing up, since I am like Chinese background anyway, I guess a lot of the East Asian beauty standards are very similar. So growing up, I guess I still had an idea of all these like strict beauty standards that I had to abide by. But I guess once you look more into it from like a K-pop point of view, it's like very, very, very strict. And some of the things, if you were to tell someone who maybe has grown up solely with just a Western background, like they would think it was insane. So that has also had a pretty negative impact on me throughout like high school. And I guess still sort of now, because I guess subconsciously I'm still trying to abide by those beauty standards.
Mm-hmm. Esther, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, in terms of beauty standards, when I was thinking about our topics, I also couldn't help but think about like how it impacts the actual idols involved, like on their own self-perception because they're being forced to fit into this mold that's considered beautiful. So like we were talking earlier about New Jeans, and like some of them are like they're teenagers. So I'm just like a little bit worried on like how their mental health and their self-perception is going to be, being raised in a culture that pressures you to look a certain way and to be a certain size and things like that.
I have two things to add to that because I've been thinking a little bit about New Jeans, and there's been a trend within the industry. Recently, we've seen a lot of new groups debut out of the trainee system with younger and younger ages. The youngest New Jeans member is 14, I believe.
Yeah,
and then there's a new YG group that's getting debuted where the youngest member is 13. And this is, although not very uncommon within the industry, we've seen a lot of popular groups have members debut young. It's never been, I think, at this low of an average young age and so many at once. And I wonder if there's a connection between having younger idols debut so that way they're much younger, much slimmer, and can fit into younger beauty standards a lot easily, right? If you're younger, you're going to be thinner, you're going to be smaller than if you were older and having a slower metabolism or having to deal with a more mature body. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the idea of like, I guess, the beauty standards and the influences now, especially because I think growing up, because being a minority, especially being East Asian, I was not able to fit Western beauty standards easily at all. And so I would just kind of have to go with whatever beauty standards I could more relate to, which would be Eastern beauty standards. And that is very strict and very like closed-minded. So it was immediately bringing like the standard over there. For example, the idea of the 50-kilogram girl. This is a very common beauty standard where the ideal weight for your body as a woman should be under 50 kilograms, which is about 110 pounds. The idea of the A4 paper waist, where the size of your waist should not be wider than a piece of like letter size paper. There are so many different beauty standards too, and especially with a competitive nature, the competitive nature of like the idol industry, right? If you can be marginally more beautiful, if you can have this little bit of plastic surgery, which is much more normalized, to be able to give yourself the leg up of being more beautiful. Or if you can, shave your jaw a little bit to have that perfect V-shaped jaw, or have double eyelid surgery, it's not seen as a big deal because it is so much popular so much more popular in Korea.
Kind of along that line, you guys know the IU diet?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring
talk
that
about
up.
that too, because it's like I know diet culture was already a big thing here, but like I was always able to resist it to a certain extent. But I feel like as I've continued to engage in K-pop, like seeing dieting being so normalized in that kind of industry, it's just like I feel myself being more acceptant towards it, which is kind of scary. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that a little bit more.
Oh, 100%. For context, the IU diet it was popularized by the soloist in South Korea named IU. She debuted very young too and has kind of grown up in the industry. but the IU diet is 1 apple, 2 sweet potatoes, and 1 protein powder drink per day. It worked for her. She dropped the weight that she felt she needed to, and she is a very slim person, and many people have tried this diet and seen the results that they've wanted to as well. Obviously, she has talked later on about dealing with anxiety and eating disorders, which are a very common problem within the industry as well, but that's the IU diet.
Yeah, so like right after Esther mentioned it, I was like literally right about to bring it up. The IU diet, I think she's talked about like the negative impacts the diet had on her and her health, obviously. But I think it's actually like we would be surprised how many other idols do a similar sort of diet, but are just not revealing it to the rest of the world, probably. And the fact that that's so normalized is also kind of scary.
And I know that even though they don't like right off the bat say that they're dieting, I know a lot of artists will be like, oh, I'm not going to eat today. Or like if they're doing like a mukbang type video, then they'll be like, okay, I'm just not going to eat this meal because it's too many calories. I feel like that's also like normalizing disordered eating in a way.
Yeah, and it's
or
kind of
fans
scary.
are like, sorry.
You go.
Oh, I know. I was just gonna say like very briefly, or fans sometimes point out like diet supplement pills in the background or something, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's kind of scary to see how it's normalized, especially through media, everybody kind of knowing about the IU diet and kind of thinking it's, a good way to lose weight. People like us, in Canada are being affected by, I guess, how, idols have this extreme diet, and we're kind of wondering, what if we try it? Would it work? Will we look like them? And that's just it's kind of a scary thought to think about because that diet is very, very extreme. And again, I can imagine it can lead to a lot of stands kind of having this poor image on themselves and holding themselves up to similar standards that, we shouldn't be at all.
I agree. Like, I think we can almost tie this back to globalization because diet culture in East Asia, also specifically in Korea, is very normalized. You would talk to your friends, your parents about the amount of calories that you're eating, tips on, chewing ice to avoid hunger or something like that, as opposed to in the West, that is more taboo. It's considered something that is an eating disorder. And so with the globalization of K-pop and the fandoms, right, we have kind of been shifted over to a South Korean mentality of diet, and I guess the comfort level has changed as well. And it's really interesting because when looking at it, and I'm hearing everything now, and I agree in that it's very normal to me. But if I were to look at it from the lens of, if a Western artist were to talk about her diet and it was the IU diet, I would be very worried. I mean, I'm still worried that it is that IU is doing it, but it feels much more normalized in the industry rather than the Western industry.
Even connecting that back to like personal experiences, I remember like I think it's also differences in culture. So for example, sometimes in Western culture, it's kind of taboo to talk about like things like weight and diet and stuff because, it's just not, I guess, an everyday conversation topic. But I guess sometimes in like East Asian cultures, it's very common to like ask people about their weight or mention diets that come up here and there and everything.
I think it's also been, though, a good part of being part of a fandom because fandoms are often quick to, they're the first ones to support their artists. They're the first ones to support each other. But also because Korean idols have created such a close relationship, it is often common to see fans calling out idols or calling out the industry or calling out beauty standards and pushing against that, realizing, oh, like, if a K-pop idol gains weight, in the Korean media, they're crucified, but to their fans and to their fandoms, it is seen as something that was maybe necessary for them based on their mental health or what was going on, and a very normal part of living. And so it's been really interesting and wonderful to see that K-pop fans are able to recognize the faults of the industry first and foremost, and are able to also spread that message.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's kind of funny how you mentioned that, idols have like a closer relationship to their fans. And I totally agree with all the like content that they put out, like, having YouTube series and, going live on whether it be Instagram or V Live, just talking to fans. There's such a close relationship between like the K-pop industry and their fans. But, I would also say on the flip side, we almost put idols on a pedestal and we view them as someone who's like, almost like not human in some sense, or some fans do at least. Like, with companies having no dating or no dating rules and kind of some fans getting angry if, a dating scandal happens. Whereas in the Western industry, if your like artist, your favorite singer starts dating someone, you would fully support them. But it's kind of interesting to see how, in K-pop, some fans get mad at their idols for doing that when they're just a normal person, and they kind of place them on this pedestal that Western artists don't really have. Yeah.
I think it's really easy to get lost in the facade of like an idol because we have to remember that the artist is the artist and the person is the person. And I feel like fans have a lot of issues like separating what's the like idol artist and then what's the actual person and like how far you can go in your relationship with them.
Yeah.
I think a perfect example of this would be, I think you guys have probably heard of it, the whole Chen from EXO, he revealed that he was married and having a child with his wife. And I think after that, his fans I saw a clip of like his fans lining up sitting on like a street, kind of like protesting the marriage and stuff like that. And I think in terms of that, I think that is when it gets too far and the relationship between fan and idol, the line is like blurred. And I think there still needs to be a very distinct separation.
Yeah. And I know the industry itself profits off of the idea of keeping your idol single because it's very marketable. Like some people think that they lose their marketability when they're in a relationship. So it's just kind of like, I feel like the actual industry, like stakeholders, like entertainment companies also aren't doing enough to clearly define the line of how fan and idol interaction should look like.
I definitely think it's just the positives and negatives of participatory culture. We talked at the beginning quite a bit about the positives of participatory culture, but this is like the bad sides of participatory culture. And honestly, it's unfortunate because it gives K-pop fans and the industry such a bad reputation. Some of it is warranted, but some of it I think is just people feeding off of the parasocial relationships that idols have created with their fans, the idea that, you want to be the perfect fan. And so you will support your idols under all circumstances. And like Alyssa was saying, putting them on a pedestal and, either like praising them for the smallest things or, any mistakes that they make, not calling them out. Because although I talked earlier about fans often holding idols responsible or accountable, often they will excuse things that others would prefer to hold them accountable for as well. So what do you guys think about the future of K-pop? What do we think the industry is going to look like? What do we think fandoms will look like, especially with many of our favorite groups being newer groups as well?
I'm hoping for a lot more diversity, not just in the like types of people that are involved, like more individuals who are not Korean, like African American individuals and other Asian individuals, but also diversity in the kinds of music that's produced. Because I know a lot of idols have very different ideas for what they want to produce. So I hope they have a lot more freedom in the future to pursue what it is that they want to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with like the diversity, thing in K-pop. Watching Boys Planet again, we're having like half of the like trainees, they're from global, meaning like the global team, meaning that they're not from Korea. And that just goes to show again how like we're trying to make, I guess, the K-pop industry more global, having trainees that represent a diversity of backgrounds from China, Japan, and other parts of Asia, and even not from Asia as well. So that's what I also hope to see. And I hope to see like maybe K-pop become even more mainstream than it is. I feel like BTS is like and Blackpink is maybe the only two groups that have really broken into the truly mainstream, like hearing on the radio kind of mainstream in America. And I hope to see more groups, really, I guess, be popular in America, and hopefully they can gain more fans in the future and do tours, especially in Toronto. I'm praying.
Please.
I also agree with both Esther and Alyssa. I think in terms of maybe fandom specifically, well, I think we're already seeing it with all these new groups coming to light and how social media has like spread them all across the world. I think it's gonna keep going like that in the future. Like with the continuous release of new groups, there's going to be new fans and new fandoms like all over the place, and hopefully it does get more localized than it already is.
And I think for me, I really hope to see the diversity of K-pop, not from the idol perspective, but the music. K-pop is often boiled down to, pop Korean music, but within K-pop, it is so many different types of music. There's hip hop, there's R&B, there's more jazz sounds, there's retro, EDM, and so I'm hoping to see that the diversity of K-pop can be kind of expand through the Western perceival of it. And I think additionally too, I hope to see popularity achieved by K-pop groups in the West where they do not have to fall under Western ideals to become popular here. BTS became popular here in the West because they created an English song, and that was some of the first like recognition that they got. And so I'm hoping to see that change. And then lastly, I additionally hope that the stigma of being a K-pop fan and being part of the fandom specifically is able to be mitigated, because we can see the benefits of being a K-pop fan, and unfortunately it's the toxic and the toxicity of an industry or a fandom that gets the loudest noise and the most recognition. And so I'm hoping that people are able to look past that. Just like any fandom, there are good and there are bad fans, and unfortunately bad fans have gotten the biggest reputation in the West.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I wish K-pop wouldn't lose its like unique identity and unique sound when it's trying to break into mainstream like American industry. So hope that it maintains that uniqueness as well. And yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Casual Stands podcast. This was our exclusive one and only podcast that we are releasing to you all today. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.